Hi everyone, thanks for visiting my channel. If you are new here, I'm Carol and I'm so glad that you stopped by. I hope you will consider subscribing. I hope you all are having a great day. We are in the midst of peach season, yum, right? And I've been sharing some yummy peach recipes on my channel. I did show you a few weeks ago how to can up peaches if you are a canner, so you might want to check those out. And there are some other things that I have going on with peaches. So a few days ago, I posted a picture of a peach Melba Cobbler that I had made, and I've gotten a lot of feedback on it, so I thought that I would show you how I made it. Now, raspberries and peaches just go together. It's just a divine flavor combination. So I decided to put them together in a cobbler. Now, if you are familiar with cobblers, people have very strong opinions on what makes a cobbler a cobbler. And as a matter of fact, my husband and I had a very heated discussion over what type of crust a real cobbler had. He is team pie crust. I was always raised with a biscuit type crust. So I did a little bit of digging, did a little bit of research, and I thought you all might be interested in what makes a cobbler because both types of toppings are in fact correct. I'm using the King Arthur Flours Baker's Companion. They have recently updated this. I have the old version. The new version is really fantastic, but I don't have it quite yet. So anyway, in here they have a whole section on cobblers, and they share a little bit of history. So I thought I would share a little bit of it with you. I won't be too windy, I promise. This has come up for discussion on my channel, which is why I felt the need or the desire just to share a little bit of information with you about cobblers. Cobblers featuring a fruit baked under or in a blanket of crust or cake is a distinctly American dish. Its name is said to come from the phrase to cobble, meaning to patch something together roughly or to cobble up, to put something together in a hurry, or perhaps from the fact that the combination of fruit and dough on top of the dish looks like cobblestones. Now here's the important part, and I found this extremely interesting. Three very different types of crust are what differentiate cobblers from one another. Originally, a cobbler's top crust was thick spoonfuls of biscuit dough, dumplings that cooked on top of the hot fruit layer, similar to slumps or grunts. That's the cobbler that I was most familiar with. Later, that dough was rolled and fitted atop the fruit, and then still later, pastry or pie crust dough was rolled and fitted over the fruit, making a cobbler akin to a deep dish fruit pie without the bottom crust, which is what my husband argued was actually cobbler. So they're both correct. And then here's an even more interesting fact. The most recent variation finds a cake-like batter being poured atop the fruit, or fruit being placed atop the batter. The fruit and the batter create a marbled effect, each remaining distinct though effectively melded. Any way you put it together a cobbler, the fruit and the crust end up mixing and mingling, the fruit softening some of the crust and the crust absorbing the fruit juices. So no matter what team you're on, if you're team pie crust, team biscuit dough, or the newest version, team cake dough or cake batter, it's all correct. But for today's purposes, I'm going to show you how to do the pie crust because that is my husband's favorite. Now you can use any pie crust recipe that you like. They're all appropriate for this, but just to show you what I do for this, I just do a basic pie pastry. I take 1 1/4 cups of flour. To the flour, I add about 1/2 teaspoon of salt and a teaspoon of sugar. Mix that together. Then I add 1/4 cup of cold butter and 1/4 cup of cold shortening that's been cubed. And then I combine that. I use my hands. You could use a pastry cutter here, but I like to just use my hands to incorporate it. Then I add 1 teaspoon of white vinegar to 3 tablespoons of ice water, and then add that on top of my flour mixture, and I use a fork and stir just to combine. You may have to add a little more ice water. It will just vary on how humid your environment is. Bring that together. Once it starts to come together, then I put it on top of a piece of plastic wrap, mold it into a disc, and stick it in the refrigerator for 30 minutes. and it'll just hang out in the fridge while we put the rest of the cobbler together. Now, because this is peach Melba Cobbler, the part that makes the Melba part is raspberries, and we're gonna make a basic raspberry syrup to be included into our filling. To do that, you're gonna take a 6-ounce container of fresh raspberries. To that, in a small saucepan, you are going to add 3/4 of a cup of sugar, and you're going to simmer the two together until your raspberries break down and your sugar is fully dissolved. It takes about 10 minutes. Then we're going to strain off the syrup, get rid of the solids, and strain the syrup, and the syrup is what we are going to use for the filling of our peach Melba Cobbler. And I know you're just dying for a little more trivia, right? So I got to researching peach Melba because it's something that I've always enjoyed, the combination of raspberries and peaches, and kind of was interested in how it originated. And so I looked it up, and on Wikipedia it says it was invented in 1892 or 93, they're not sure which, by the French chef Auguste Escoffier at the Savoy Hotel in London to honor the Australian soprano Nellie Melba. So it's named after a singer. I thought that that was kind of interesting. I love cooking trivia, so I hope that you enjoyed the little tidbits about the history on cobbler and where peach Melba comes from. So just to jazz things up just a little more, in our filling we're also going to be including peach schnapps. So delicious here, but you can totally leave this out, it's totally optional. So we have our raspberry sauce ready. It's cooling, I've set it aside. I've made my pie crust, it's chilling in the fridge. So now we are ready to make our delicious filling. So before you start your filling, make sure you preheat your oven to 425 degrees. Now you can put this in any type of dish that you want. I'm gonna use an oval Corningware baker. I like it because it has a glass lid that can go on top for storing whatever we don't eat of our cobbler right away. That makes it easy, but you could do it in a pie plate. You could do it in any type of baking dish that you wish. So, now I do want to mention that if you are a canner and you followed along with me with the raspberry syrup, if you have some of the raspberry syrup canned up, you do not need to make the fresh raspberry syrup here. You can totally use that, but that's entirely up to you. I went through the process of showing you how to make the raspberry syrup just in case you don't have that on hand, but if you can that up, feel free to use that in the recipe instead. Okay guys, you can use fresh or frozen peaches with this. I am using fresh peaches. My husband scored some second peaches, they're calling them, so they have some bruising and whatnot on them that would not make them good candidates for canning, but they're great for using in pies and cobblers. So all I'm doing is cutting the peaches in half, removing the seed, and then they're pretty ripe, so they're pretty easy to peel. I'm just using a really sharp paring knife to remove the peeling. You can always blanch your peaches if you want to peel them. That's really easy to do, but this is fine. This works just fine for these. So you don't have to blanch them unless you want to. And then just make sure you cut out any bad spots and then slice them. I am keeping mine in a solution, in a ascorbic acid solution, to keep them from browning while I peel them. But we ideally need about 6 cups of peaches. So you could also use frozen peaches here, would be totally fine. So I'm gonna go ahead, finish peeling and slicing my peaches. Then I'm going to drain off the ascorbic acid solution, and then we will make the rest of our filling. Okay guys, we're all set to throw things together. I drained my peaches. I did want to mention that the fruit preserver that I'm using is the One by Ball Fruit Fresh Produce protector, but Mrs. Wages makes one. There are several out there. There's the Fruit Fresh brand. There are several out there. It just helps to keep the vibrant color of your peaches without them turning brown. It isn't necessary, but I do like to do it. So now we're ready to throw everything together. So I'm just going to add just a little dash of salt. That just always helps with the flavor of anything. So we're just going to put in a dash of salt. I'm going to put in my raspberry syrup. It equaled about 3/4 of a cup. That's about how much you'll need. Then we're going to start with 3/4 of a cup of sugar. You may need more, you may need less, depending on how sweet your peaches are. And then for my, excuse me, for my thickener, I'm using my Cook Type Clear Gel. but you also use cornstarch here. You could use flour here. You could use tapioca flour. It's entirely up to you. I keep clear gel on hand because I can. So, and that's what's approved for canning. So we need about 1/4 cup of that as well. And then we just want a couple dashes of nutmeg, about 1/4 teaspoon. And then some delicious peach schnapps. The peach schnapps is optional, and how much is up to you. But I do, I don't know, 1/4 cup, 3 tablespoons or so to 1/4 cup, but that's totally to taste. Just gonna give that a nice stir. Now, cobblers traditionally are a little juicier than a pie, so if I was making this into pie filling, I would use a little more clear gel to make sure that it sets up really well. But cobblers tend to be a little runnier, but the texture is up to you. This is just the consistency that we like, but you could use more clear gel or whatever thickener you're using if you prefer. And see how it makes this beautiful blushing color, so pretty. So I have sprayed my casserole dish with cooking spray to help with sticking. We're going to go ahead and pour this into our cooking dish. That looks stunning already, but we're going to set that aside and we're going to get our pie crust and roll it out. Okay, for those of you who are intimidated by pie crust, you might want to embrace cobblers because we do not need for it to look pretty or be perfect here. So I just generously flour my surface and then I use my rolling pin to roll it out. You don't want it too thin. You want it about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick. If you've left it in the refrigerator for more than 30 minutes, it's probably going to be hard to roll out because of the butter. So wait till it warms up a little bit. That will make it easier for you. Okay, you want to roll it out roughly to the size of your dish. So then I just take it and fold it over to make it easy to move it. Then just cover your delicious peach filling. And I always make mine a little bit bigger than my dish, and then I just kind of tuck in the ends. Again, we're making a cobbler, so it should look cobbled. You don't want to waste any of that delicious crust. If you are wise, you will put your baking dish on top of a parchment or foil lined baking sheet. Because I can already tell mine's super full, so I know it's going to bubble over a little bit and you don't want a mess to clean up. So just put it on a baking sheet, then take a really sharp knife and cut some vents in the top so it will vent nicely for you. All right, we're gonna pop this into a 425-degree oven for about 15 minutes, and then I'm going to reduce the heat to 350 and let it continue to bake till the inside is nice and bubbly and your crust is nice and golden brown. Now you have some other options here. You could brush the top of your pie crust with an egg wash and sprinkle it with sugar and all that. But I don't typically do that. I think the pie crust is beautiful by itself. But if you want to get fancy, feel free to do that. But anyway, we're going to pop it in the oven. Okay guys, we are all finished. Once I baked it, like I told you, for 15 minutes at 425, then I reduced the heat of my oven to 350, and then I baked it for an additional about 45 minutes. But mine is really deep dish. I was very generous with my 6 cups of peaches, so if you measure accurately or you have it in a more shallow dish, it should only take 30 to 35-ish minutes. It won't take as long as what mine did. But you want to bake it till it's golden brown on top, your crust is nice and golden brown, and all of your filling is nice and bubbly. Now I've been letting it sit for about an hour. You do want to let your cobbler sit. I do like to eat mine warm, but you do want it to sit a little bit for the your thickener to set up. So anyway, it's still pretty runny, but I wanted to show it to you because it's just so darn pretty. See that blushing peach color from the raspberries in your sauce? It is so pretty. A little bit of ice cream on the side. So yummy. So let's give it a taste and see how we did. But before we do that, I wanted to say, for those of you who followed along with me and made the raspberry syrup, you could even take some of your raspberry syrup and drizzle it across the top for a little extra raspberry flavor and beautiful pink color. So, so pretty. So let's give it a taste and see how we did. You can see that nice flaky crust. You can even hear it, how flaky it is. Perfect. That's what we want. Get a little bit of ice cream. The raspberry and the peaches are perfect together. It's so summery. It's just, I don't know, it's just a beautiful dessert. I just love the colors together. That bright, vibrant orange from the peaches and the red from the raspberries is just summer perfection. So I hope you will give it a try. I hope you liked all the little trivia I shared with you about cobbler and how Peach Melba got its name. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me today. If you have any questions, don't forget to leave them in the comment section. Like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you next time. Have a great day, guys.